Okay. I got this. Okay. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I am Aybek Furkhati, the very last person many of you would expect to be up here today, giving a chapel speech. My history with chapel has not been the greatest. Chapel and I have had many conflicts throughout the years at Appleby, with my typical question at the chapel Q&As, why do we have to go to chapel? I've gotten in trouble countless of times, talked to countless of teachers after every chapel. Eventually, I stopped my behavior, starting to embrace the full essence of chapel. I started to cherish the time in chapel as time where you don't have to worry about anything, not stress, and take in the full meaning of the eagle-eyed window. I realized I started to finally grow up and respect chapel and how it's a place to reflect. Now, growing up has made me realize a lot about me. Many of you would assume that I would be talking about how a life-changing event molded me as a person, or how I went through tough times and pushed through. I'm sure many of you have those stories, but not me. I'm going to talk about what my parents did for me. I am very fortunate to live a very simple life here in Canada. I was born in Toronto, then moved to Quebec, lived the life of a French Canadian for 2 years, then moved to Mississauga, then finally moved to Oakville, and now I'm here at Appleby. Now, the reason why I've gone through such a simple life that I'm very lucky to have is not all because of luck. It is mainly because of my parents. They have worked unimaginably hard to get me here and to give me countless number of opportunities, and that I keep managing to screw up, that's not the point. My parents both grew up in a neighborhood where it was a tough place to live. At school, they would always be considered the minority, how they were considered a different class compared to the other kids because of their race. They would always have to work extra hard to compete with the other kids and not fall behind, whether it's the teacher not helping them or the kids bullying. It was a tough environment, but in always being looked at less than anyone else and being in your own category at school. Even the teachers looked at you differently. In University of Shanghai, my parents were on a date for one of the first times. The university dorms had balconies, so my parents would spend time hanging out there. As they were together, a group of students decided to dump huge amount of water on top of them in the middle of their date. My dad went to go confront them, but security came and kicked out my dad. My dad learned from that moment on that people will always try to make you upset and angry for their benefit. If you get angry, you give people what they want and you're helping them and not you. Don't let people stop you or get in the way from excelling. As years went by, my mom and dad graduated from Shanghai University, and then they decided to leave China and head to Japan. The problem was, it was very hard for them to leave because of the issues going on with the Chinese government. You see, my dad grew up in a part of China that wasn't part of China long ago, so those people considered minorities to the Chinese government. Even to this day, they're considered dangerous to Chinese unity and even sometimes considered to be a terrorist for no reason. At this very moment, China has military trucks driving around and soldiers on patrol at all times. Despite the challenges, they finally managed to leave for Japan and both studied in the University of Hiroshima. After graduation, my parents' original plan was to raise kids in Japan. Once my dad started working in Japan, my mom knew this tradition where every day when your shift ends, it is a courtesy to stay behind and work extra. So by the time work is over for my dad, he'll be finished around 10 p.m. Then, after work, a bunch of employees go to a local bar and bond together as workers. This occurs every day during the week. My mom realized that my dad would always be busy and the kids would grow up without a father figure in the family. That's why my parents decided to move to Canada. This was a big move by my parents because they were just settled in and my dad found a job. They decided to create the best chance to give a great environment to grow up in, which was to move to Canada. My dad quit his good paying job, took all the money they had, and moved. My dad and mom struggled through a lot when we moved here. Imagine grabbing all your things and completely moving to the other side of the world, not knowing the language or the culture at all. First problem was the language. My parents knew how to speak Chinese and Japanese, but not English. We settled in a small apartment in Quebec. My dad thought with his intelligence, he would find a job easily, but that wasn't the case. He tried many times to interviews for several companies, got rejected each time because of his lack of English. Even at one point, he didn't get a job at Highland Farm, the grocery store, because of his English. Our family tends to have bad relationships with grocery stores, being the fact that I got fired from 14 years after 3 weeks. This time it was my lack of effort and not English. With no jobs for my mom and dad, my dad decided to move back to Japan and get his old job back for several years to make enough money for my mom and dad. My mom and I stayed in a small apartment and she used time to attend University of Ottawa so she could learn English. Then at least someone could know the main language of Canada in the family. Time to time, my dad would visit us in Canada, but mainly stayed in Japan to work. My dad was going through a lot during these years because of his dad passing away at the age of 65 to illness in his kidney. He passed away a year after I was born, and me being so young, I don't remember what kind of person he was, but I'm sure he was a great dad and even better granddad. My dad being so separated from us only made it harder for him, but he kept working, only thinking about our future and what's best for the family. Losing someone so important in your life can affect someone in many ways, and the fact that my dad continued to work and think about my mom and I as his main objective is amazing. Eventually, my dad moved back to Canada from Tokyo and decided he was going to create his own company. We moved to Toronto, and as times went by, we moved out of our small apartment and bought a house in Mississauga. My parents went through so much to make sure I had a nice and easy road. They moved to Canada thinking about the life for me and my two younger sisters. They made sure I would have the highest starting point they could provide for my life. They gave me a chance to go to school in a safe environment. A big population in the world doesn't have a safe environment to live in or go to school, doesn't have the same rights as Canadians do, and the government isn't developed yet, and that needs to change. There are thousands of kids who don't go to school or don't feel safe going to bed. We all need to appreciate where we live and go for education. That is all because of your parents. Since I was 8, my parents gave me the opportunity to play soccer, and that's a sport I love. When I was 9, they sent me to Japan alone to meet my cousins over the winter break. At this point, I hated them because I had no idea who my cousins were, I was missing Christmas, and I was traveling alone at 9. It was a hard 2 weeks for me, but when I came back, they told me that they sent me to Japan alone because they wanted me to be ready for my future. Only way to teach a kid how to swim is you throw them in the deep end and let them learn. From that point on, I was never homesick again. Everyone's parents do a lot for their children. It doesn't seem like much until you think about it. The reason why your parents are always nagging and bothering you about school is because they want you to succeed with the life that you're given and not have to struggle. I think one of the most important virtues in life is the will to work hard. My dad and mom worked very hard to get to Canada, to get a job, and to provide for me and my sisters. That all didn't just come out of nowhere. My dad lived in Japan so we could have enough money to live a happy life. My mom took care of me alone at the same time studying English and trying to get a job. That all has made me who I am today. Sometimes think, what have your parents done for you? It is important to realize and appreciate what they have done and take advantage of the lives you have. Take the opportunities that come up and make the most of what you have because I'm sure your parents worked very hard for it. Appleby provides many amazing opportunities like service trips, intercultural trips, student exchange trips, and even the music class had a chance to go to Bermuda to perform. Bermuda would be a wonderful place to travel, especially with my friends saying how nice of an experience it was. Appleby provides these amazing experiences, and that is all because of what my parents did to get me here in the first place. I like to live by the words of Mr. Sakonic would shout every soccer game. Make a meal out of it, son, and put some pepper on that steak. Everyone has different circumstances and different lives, but what you have now is because of what your parents did and what they did for you. Many parents had the opportunity to create better lives and work hard, but some across the world don't even have that opportunity. No one in your life will make a bigger impact than your parents. Parents aren't perfect, they make mistakes, and they are human just like us. In the long run, you will appreciate what they do and realize where they got you in the future. Your parents have created this your life for you, and it's important to think that what they went through and did for you. My parents put a roof over my head, a bed to sleep on, food to eat, and yes, even an opportunity to go to chapel. I am very lucky to have parents like mine and what they did for me. They didn't have a childhood like mine and made sure I would have one that they always dreamed of. To end this off, I'd like to say thank you to my beautiful parents, Dila and Furkhati, here today for everything they have done. And teachers, excuse my dad's English at the parent-teacher interviews. He's still improving. Thank you, and will you please rise and sing hymn number 460.